All right, folks, welcome back into the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's always Carl Jones. We're bringing you all the insight, the analysis you got. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on RochesterFirst.com and YouTube. And Carl, we've got 1 weekend left in the winter sports season. The grind is almost coming to an end before, starts back up for the spring.
Man, it's been a blast, though. I really enjoy being indoors, first and foremost. Really enjoy it.
We love walls. We're big fans of walls here on the podcast. Walls, ceilings, floors, the whole 10 yards. Not even the whole 9 yards. We got the whole 10 yards. We love our walls.
All of that, man. I've just been really excited this entire way. Been some great games. I've seen a lot of talented boys and girls and on all the sports. Hockey, bowling covered the one time, cheerleading,
swimming, wrestling, little Nordic alpine action. We're getting on the Section 5 best. We got it all.
Exactly. So the fact that it's coming to an end this weekend is a little bittersweet. But man, I mean, what a better stage for you to show out than the state Final Four. So I'm looking forward to see how this all transpires over the weekend.
Yeah, and we will be there at the state Final Four girls basketball. We got our 4 teams going. We'll be previewing that later in the podcast with Jeff Mliner of Empire State Takeover. You've probably seen him on Twitter. You've probably, subscribing to his website or following his website all over on social media, driving all across the state, covering all these games. The man knows his stuff, and you're going to hear that later in the podcast. We really appreciate Jeff coming on the show. We'll talk more about those the state semifinal games later up in the show. But first, we're locking in on a winner. We both had some great action we got to cover this past weekend at the Far West Regionals for both boys and girls basketball. For hockey, it was the state Final Four. I'll start off with my action. We'll start with the hockey first. We're going to get into a little basketball later. But, Victor and Thomas, both back in the state Final Four. Both supposed to go there 2 years ago, didn't get their chance. This time around, they both fought their hearts out, but a couple of heartbreaking losses there. Victor suffering a 1-0 defeat to West Geneseo, and then Webster Thomas losing 2-1 to Star Point. Just a really, both really tight physical games. That Victor game, really low score, obviously low scoring 1-0, but not a ton of chances in that first period. That was just a real feeling out period. Second period opened up a little bit, and then start of the third period, West Genesee got a power play from the beginning or the end of the second period. They started out the third, had a great little play there. They got their goal, and Victor just really couldn't get a ton of momentum. There wasn't even, there was a little bit of a push at the end, but there wasn't like a massive push with the empty net. Didn't take a ton of great saves. So, just Victor couldn't find the offense there. And then Webster Thomas, the Titans, I actually got there basically as the first goal was being scored late in the second period, mid to late second period. The shots on goal was a big disparity for Star Point. It was like 26-4 or 5 at some point. Just really seemed like a blowout. And then that third period, when I was actually there, it was a competitive game. Whatever Thomas, maybe giving up that goal helped them open up a little bit.
Folks at home, I'm sorry. Von Miller just signed with the Bills. I'm sorry, but continue.
Von Miller just signed with the Buffalo Bills.
Sorry, folks. Didn't want to.
Oh my goodness! A 6-year deal for $120 million. Wow.
That's a lot of money. I know this is a high school podcast, everyone, but that's huge news in Western New York, so I had to look at that real quick.
Wow, we get this live reaction of. Yeah, look at this. He got the up on Instagram right now, tweeting out he's coming to the Bills. Wow, that is a lot. I mean, not a lot of money, but that is just wow. No, people were, I was also in that camp of, man, they just can't, reshuffle the decks on the the ship to get things, over the Chiefs. Wow, that's what they needed. Sorry, Jerry Hughes.
Yeah, that's a huge get, and man, we'll see if he can relive some of that magic that we saw in the postseason. But nonetheless, get back to our amazing hockey coverage that unfortunately came to an end this weekend.
Yeah. Man, 6 years, 120. I can't wait to see what the numbers on there, because Von Miller signing a 6-year deal, that's got to be a lot of funny money at the end and voided years and whatnot. Dude's like, I think he's 33.
Yeah, the way Andrew Brent described everything for me this weekend is if it's a 5-year deal, it's really a 2-year deal. So I mean, if it's a 6-year deal, I'm assuming it's pretty.
He's 32. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So look at that. All right. Good luck, Patrick Mahomes, and company. And literally all 12 AFC quarterbacks that are really good. So yeah, they needed someone like that. Okay. All right. So back to the Thomas Titans hockey thing. We're gonna leave that in there. We're gonna let people get our reaction to that. I can't wait. I am gonna gif the hell out of your eyes bulging up at the Von Miller news. It was classic. If you're listening on Spotify, go to rochesterfirst.com, go to our Twitter feed, see Carl Jones' eyes light up when Von Miller signs with the Buffalo Bills.
I looked to my right and I try my best not to look at my phone, but I'm like, why is my phone blowing up? And it's my friends. Like, and then it was 2 Twitter notifications. I was like, oh, okay, hold on, let me go on my laptop. And then Von Miller, Bills.
Yeah, because like 5 minutes ago, the Bills they sent out the tweet that they officially signed DeQuan Jones, and I'm like, I know Carl ain't doing that for DeQuan Jones unless there's another DeQuan Jones that I'm not aware of. No,
not familiar with that man.
All right, so yeah, all right, Von Miller, all right, go Bills. So yeah, Thomas. Third period, they did have some chances. They got a goal, shot from the point. They got a post late in the game, but it was actually a really controversial sequence late in the game. Thomas had a cross check from behind, kind of on the boards. They whistled for a penalty, which I thought was a fair penalty to call on Thomas, but they sent the star point kid to the box first, and he like chilled out there for like 30 seconds as they're figuring this out. And then he left the box and no one was in the box for like 2 minutes. And then the Thomas kid comes back into the box. So it went from seemingly Thomas was getting the power play to they were on the penalty kill, and they eventually let up the game-winning goal. So really weird sequence. I don't even know what happened there, but
they got high school review. They got review in high school hockey. Like, what's going on?
They don't have review in high school hockey, but something happened. I don't know what miscommunication, because I didn't see a penalty on the star point. Like, I'm not arguing that it shouldn't have been a Thomas penalty. I mean, certainly, there's 2 minutes left in the game. They swallowed their whistles a little bit, but I was fine with the penalty being called there. But just the way everything happened was really weird. So yeah, that is the end of our high school hockey season. Thomas and Victor falling up short in the state Final Four. They're both bringing back a lot of forces. So we'll see what they can do next year as well. Just so I don't have to talk for 25 minutes here in a row. Carl, we'll go back over to you for the girls basketball action, where the girls, they showed out. They stepped up. A lot of these games that we thought might have been closer than they were, our girls had other ideas.
Man, I had once again, shout out to the hockey teams. I really had fun covering you guys this year, exposing me to the ice. Man, it was fun, and I can't wait to see y'all back on the ice again next fall and winter. But nonetheless, the girls, they did their thing, and they showed out. Started out with Class AA with Kearney. Mary Margaret Johnson last week told us that Lancaster was going to bring it, and sure they did. But Kearney said, don't care about none of that. We're going to bring it too. And whew, Kearney, I think the thing that stands out about them, I know everyone talks about how well they play, how fast they play, the press, all that. You have to really look at their roster and realize that they're doing this with a bunch of underclassmen. Like, there's a bunch of 8th, 9th, and 10th graders out there. Kaya Good is legit. She's as good as it gets at 5'2", which makes it even more remarkable. But the team is young, and they run up and down the court, and I feel like they have this naivety to them that oh well, like, we don't have really much expectations. We're young, like, all right, whatever. We don't know what's supposed to happen here, so we're just gonna go out there and play. And you can kind of tell when they're out there hooping and doing their thing. So I mean, shout out to the Kings. They did their thing this week. I can't wait to see how that transpires in the Final Four. In Class A, as AJ would like to say, Mendon did Mendon type things. That game was kind of over before it started. To be respectful as I can to the opposing team in that one, I believe it was a 30-point lead at halftime. Mendon, I mean, every other game there's someone else who does their thing. I mean, this week it was Lily Kennedy dropping 26. She was in transition, shooting the 3-ball, a couple of middies. I mean, she was explosive per usual. Nia Coleman, I mean, she's just a handful. I mean, she's out there doing her thing. That team right there, I haven't seen clearly the other teams in Class A. I will be very hard-pressed to believe that the rest of the state can handle Mendon. And so we'll see how that transpires at the state tournament. And in Class B and C, Waterloo, once again, showing that they're really, really darn good. I believe they're on a 39-game winning streak now to advance to the state tournament. It was only a 7-point lead at the half. And as we learned earlier, we'll learn later in this podcast, Newport kind of had a different strategy in how they were going to guard Waterloo. You know, they tried their best to stop Gia inside. And then everyone else said, all right, cool, giving us an opportunity to step up and do our thing. So if you guys just thought this was a one girl band, you've been wildly mistaken. They're clearly a well-oiled machine. So we'll get to see them on the biggest stage, and they'll take on some very formidable opponents down there in Class B that you guys will learn about later. And the last but not least, the Lady Bombers, East Rochester. Is happy to see them. I'm always good for I don't want to say underdog stories, but the schools that haven't really been here before, and they're one of those teams, their first time in school history, boys or girls, to get to this point. Obviously, Sam Lewis is the head of the snake, but they have a bunch of other girls, the Eldridge sisters, Lily Funk. It's a bunch of girls that make that engine go. So we'll see if they can keep this magic alive in the state tournament. But I had a blast this weekend, man. I really did, and in convincing fashion in all the games.
Yeah, definitely. Our top team showed out for sure. They'll be trying to win some state titles. Honestly, we've got 4 teams going. I'm not going to say that we're going to win 4 state titles, but 2 or 3 would not be out of the realm of possibility. So we'll see exactly how they fare. We'll talk about that more coming up later with Jeff from Empire State Takeover. Over on my side, on the boys' side, you know, I saw the hockey teams lose. Saw a lot of boys basketball teams lose again. I was the jinx this weekend. And really, you know, the 4 games I saw, Avoca-Prattsburg did win in Class D, number 1. We've talked about them before. Did not get to cover them. That was when Victor was going as well, Victor Hockey. So congrats to Avoca-Prattsburg going on to state. But the 4 games I did get to see, Newark couldn't really just get anything going in that Class B game. They lost to Allegheny Limestone. Could never really seemingly find their shooting touch. They were trying to use their physicality to get inside. Only so much you can do when the shots aren't falling. The other 3 games, you got Avon, you had Pittsford Mendon, and then you had Aquinas. Both lost by 2. All 3 of those teams lost by 2 points. Both right down to the wire. They both all of them made some really nice pushes. You know, Mendon was down. They were down like 10 or 11 midway through the 4th quarter, and then they were down 7 with like a minute 10 to go. They pushed back right to the wire. They got a look at the last shot, didn't fall. Avon made 2 great pushes. They had I believe it was like a 10-0, 11-0 run. Before that, they had back-to-back threes. They really dominated that 4th quarter. Just Salamanca hit the threes when they could. Salamanca had some really good players. I was really impressed watching them play. But you know, just Avon came up a little bit short. And then Aquinas against Jamestown. You know, Aquinas, they've got some really talented athletes, really talented basketball players. But in this game against Jamestown, you know, they finally found a team that could match them in their physicality. And now that Jamestown team, you know, we talked about with Mary Margaret Johnson, a bunch of the same football players. I was wondering if these were going to be, you know, like football players playing football, like you see at the, you know, the rec center when they come in and we're like, all right, you know, we're going to start taking over here. We're just bigger athletes than you. We're just going to toss the ball up, get some rebounds and play basketball that way. It was not that way. They were skilled. They could shoot, they could pass, they could press. They really, you know, Aquinas by no means is a, you know, they're a very physical team, but they kind of met their match. And I think it kind of threw them for a loop a little bit. But they had a furious charge at the end. They were down like 7 points with 15 seconds to go, and they got almost a chance to win the game. Jamestown actually did a really good job of hitting their free throws through that whole sequence. That game could have been a lot crazier if you know, we missed some front ends of some 1-on-1s in these games we've seen so far. But yeah, boys basketball. A big offer on the games that I covered. Avoca-Prattsburg, the lone Section 5 representative. So they're going to do their best to, you know, carry the torch for Section 5 here.
Yeah, and when you sent back all the highlights from those games, I know everyone came up short, but I had fun calling those games because, man,
they were great games.
Yeah, and I'm looking at like especially the Aquinas and the Avon finishes, Mendon as well. I'm my bad, Mendon as well. I mean, those 3 finishes, I'm like, I mean, don't get it twisted. Your season comes to an end. I know you're hurt, but man, if you want to talk about leaving it all out there, you know, emptying the tank, those three teams did. So I got to give them big kudos for literally playing until the buzzer ended on all those games.
Yeah, that Aquinas game, just one too many chances that they gave up, on the offensive board. Jamestown picking up those rebounds really kind of cost them at the end. So I'm sure they're going to be doing quite a few extra box out drills this offseason. So we are down to Avoca Pratsburg.
Yeah, so hopefully they can hold the torch.
The Avoca Pratsburgers, because they don't have a real name. So they're just Avoca Pratsburg. They just joined this year. They have not come up with a cool name. They're just Avoca Pratsburg. The Avoca Pratsburgs.
The Avoca Pratsburg basketball team. Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly. They're Washington before the Commanders. All right, now it is time to bring in our special guest, Jeff Mliner of Empire State's Takeover, bringing all the high school girls basketball coverage. Just a really great resource for all this. You're going to hear it on our show. We're really lucky to have him on to break down all these games. Carl's going down there. Sure, prep the hell out of him for what he's going to see. So we appreciate him coming on. We'll get to that interview right now. All right, and as we mentioned, we are welcome to bring in Jeff Mliner from Empire State Takeover. Knows anything and everything about girls basketball, here to break down the state tournament coming up this weekend. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, certainly. We got a really exciting week of girls basketball. It's been a while since we've had the state tournaments. It's good to be back. I know you're probably incredibly excited as our players to get back to the state tournament here.
Absolutely. And it's nice. I always enjoy this time of year because I'm just kind of traveling around all year, especially during the winter. It's a little nutty. And I live 15, 20 minutes from Hudson Valley. So that's driving around all year. And when the far west comes around, the Section 5 team, the Section 5 teams at one, I'm like, all right, see you in my backyard.
Especially with the gas prices these days. A good week to have this.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, if you follow Jeff on Twitter, you see he is driving all across the state. He's got frequent flyer miles on the thruway for sure. So we can see the look at his face right now. So I know we all appreciate his coverage. So
Thank God for the longevity of Corollas.
Exactly. Yes, I can speak to that myself. The longevity and the gas mileage as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so we will get started here. We're going to go in chronological order of the girls basketball weekend. As we all know, Section 5 has 4 teams in the states. We're starting off with the Class A matchup, which, these are all going to be great matchups, but this might be one of the best of the weekend. You've got Mendon and then Tappan Zee out of Section 1. Both teams coming in at 24-1. I talked to Mendon earlier this week, just went out to practice. They said this thing was going to be a war. They're preparing for a war. Jeff, I saw you on Twitter. You called it a clash of the Titans. Is this kind of our de facto state championship game here?
I wouldn't necessarily look past Averill Park on the other side. I know Mendon came out here and gave it to them over the holiday break, but they were, to be fair, Averill Park was missing their starting point guard and they were missing their head coach. COVID protocol, where no team I've seen, or there's no team in New York that rallies around their head coach like Averill Park does. So they kind of look lost without those two. But so I wouldn't necessarily look past them on the other side. But I mean, this is a clash of, this is the one that people are looking for. It's probably going to be one of the best games of the weekend. Mendon's in interesting territory because they've went, they're a juggernaut, right? They went through all year dominant against a vast majority of their competition. A lot of their competition has been good. It's not like they've been playing burgers all year. They've had a lot of good teams on their schedule that they've run through the vast majority of. I was in the gym for their only loss, so hopefully I'm not bad luck. But this is probably the first time, or one of the first times, that they're coming in all right, this is going to be a dogfight for 32 minutes. Tappan Zee is a group that they have talent. I don't want to take away from the fact that they have talent by saying the next thing, but it's almost like the sum is greater than the parts. They have that individual talent. Ariana Kupi, 5'11", really athletic, difficult matchup, versatile. Dana Phelan's going to play Division II ball next year at Staten Island. Kind of a combo guard, does a lot of everything, but she's an impact scorer for them. But they play very well together. They're scrappy. They play really hard. They will probably be the best team that Mendon has seen on the defensive end this year. So that'll be, for a Friday 10 a.m. game. Honestly, part of those, like Friday 10 and the Saturday 9, some of it also comes down to who's awake. Who actually, those are the games where somebody tends to lay an egg. And if neither team does, which the way that they are, I don't think, I think both teams will be there mentally and physically. That could be the best game of the weekend, or should be one of the best games of the weekend.
It's funny you mentioned the defense, because that's what I was talking to Anaya Coleman. She specifically singled out, like, defensively, they do a lot of the same stuff we do with their, their rotations, their help tendencies, things like that. A little bit about their defensive, side of the ball, and just kind of what makes them so dangerous there.
I mean, beyond, I think it goes, and pardon me with saying this because I'm kind of a basketball nerd, or at least I fancy myself as one with the X's and O's and stuff like that. But it goes beyond that with Tappan Zee. Like, I look more at they're a unit defensively. They work as a team. They put 5 kids out on the court that get after it. They put 5 kids out on the court that are mentally focused and physically engaged and get after it every possession. And they've from a rotational standpoint, and from just the X's and O's piece, they're always, they tend to be in the right spots, and they're taking teams out of their primary options, their primary actions pretty consistently. But they just, especially at the high school level, teams can think they get after it on the defensive end, but they're not really locked in every possession. Tappan Zee is one of those rare teams that they're locked in every possession. If you're going to score on them, you got to work pretty much every time down the court. And that'll be interesting because not many teams execute in the half court the way Mendon does. So should be fun.
Yeah, and in terms of the experience, I saw this is Tappan Zee's first time in the state Final Four. Obviously Mendon is Mendon; they're the juggernaut. Do you think that could play some point of an impact, or does Tappan Zee just have so many horses that you really don't think the stage is going to be too much for them this weekend?
I usually think that's played out the first time. Because I think there's ways to make up for it from an experience standpoint, not entirely. Obviously there are some nerves that come into it. I think there's nerves that come into it even if it's your 3rd time thing or your 4th time, or if you're a Section 2 team that will be, which Section 2's got 4 of them, just like 5 does, where they play their finals at Hudson Valley. Some will play their semifinals. Like, there's going to be teams that play. This will be their 4th game there this year. I still there's still some level of nerves, but if you can make up for it in other ways, if you played in that sort of environment, like maybe a neutral site environment where there's not the walls behind the basket, where it messes with depth perception, or if you've played a higher level of competition throughout the year, you've scheduled up where you've played opponents that have that sort of team speed. There's ways to make up for it. I think that this Tappan Zee crew, I don't think that first time stigma will affect them like maybe it could some others.
Definitely. It's certainly a matchup I know we'll be looking forward to. And then the other side of the bracket, West Babylon versus Averill Park. In terms of the state rankings, West Babylon 13th, Averill Park 3rd. So clearly they're, on paper, the favorites there. You mentioned you were at that Mendon game where kind of, Mendon kind of took it to Averill Park, and obviously, like you said, missing a couple pieces. Just what do they bring to the table? If they get a rematch with perhaps a Mendon again, what do you see out of them in a potential if they were to make it to that championship game?
They played each other, just for background, they played each other over the holiday break out here in the Albany area, and Mendon whooped. I think the final score was 52-25. They were AP was missing their starting point guard, who's going to Lemoyne next year, ankle injury. They were also missing their head coach, Sean Organ, who was, I believe, in COVID protocol. And AP really kind of relies on the head coach more than most teams. They've focused their energy around what he brings to the table, more so than probably any team that I've seen. So they look like Mendon is on paper, Mendon is a little bit better of a team. I think the Averill Park people that listen to this kill me for saying that. I mean, they are a little bit, they're a little deeper, a little better on paper, but that 52 to 25 is an what AP brings, they're a little deeper than usual as far as getting 6 or 7 that can produce for them. They definitely have a big three. Amelia Wood, versatile 6-footer, plays out on the perimeter, but she's got the strength and athleticism and willingness to be physical to bang around the rim. She's going to play Division I ball with her older sister next year at Sacred Heart. Michelina Lombardi, the point guard, who's going to Lemoyne. And then Taylor Hollahan, who's a sophomore, that's getting a lot of Division I stuff now. Another 6-footer, long, kind of a stretch 4, can step out and shoot 3, finishes at the rim. Very good rim protector. Probably one of the better shot blockers that I've covered ever, in my years of doing this. Knowing AP, if they get there, and if Mendon gets there, they will treat it like every other opponent, but in the back of their heads, there's a little bit of revenge on their minds. Could they potentially win? Yeah. I would just anticipate it to be considerably more competitive than 52 to 25.
Gotcha. Can't wait to see how Class A shakes out. Mendon's been formidable all year, but clearly they got 3 other teams that they got to worry about in that bracket as well. But the 1:30 game, Class AA, the big dogs, starting with Bishop Kearney taking on Corning out of Section 4. Kearney, they're ranked 3rd in the state, first if you exclude the teams that are from the NYC area and the Catholic school teams. 16-game winning streak, clearly they're a very talented team to getting back to this point. But they're up against a Corning team that's ranked 13th in the state and had an interesting path to get here. You saw them in the regional final. I think the nugget that I found most interesting about their path, they won their last 3 games, by a combined 6 points, which is absurd for this time of year. They clearly know how to win late. Talk about their run down the stretch and how they got to this point.
There's 2 kinds of teams that once we get to this time of year, that regardless of what conventional wisdom might say, I will never look past. One kind is a team that's got a transcendent individual star that can take over a game. And the other is a team that's playing with house money, effectively. And Corning doesn't have that transcendent star, but they're playing with house money. This is their first time here. This is the first time I think a Section 4 team has made it to Hudson Valley in AA in 11 years, I think.
Wow.
Usually that's that 1-4-9 region has been dominated by one recently, especially with Austin, the run that they had. But I knew that they would be good coming in. I think everyone knew that they would be, or everyone that covered that area and paid attention to girls basketball knew they would be pretty good. The fact, out of the 20 teams that are left, they're one of the biggest surprises that they're here at this point. Not maybe even the biggest surprise, but if not, they're definitely one of the biggest surprises. Not a shock that they got to the finals at all. Moderate upset that they beat Elmira. And then some other things worked out in their favor on the other side of the bracket with 1-9. It's the first time Section 1 got knocked out. They got knocked out in sub-regionals. It's the first time they got knocked out, that 11-year period. Albertus Magnus, who may be the most talented group in Section 1, they got knocked out in Section 1 finals. So then when Warwick and Corning played each other, Corning probably played 16 of its best minutes of basketball in the first half, and Warwick probably played 16 minutes of its worst basketball in the first half. So, not all of it had to do with each. Not all of one had to do with all of the other. Did Corning play into it? Yeah, Corning played it. They were active on the defensive end. They move, the ball moves quicker than the player. And they spent the first half moving the ball in the half court as well as any team I've seen this year. And Warwick is generally an active, well-coached, the well-coached group that gets after it. And they looked a step slow. And I don't think necessarily they may not have been a step slow by their standards, but Corning's got the ball movement, player movement, where they're getting 7-8 passes off, and the ball was hitting both sides of the court, 15-second possession. They got, you do that, you're going to consistently get good looks. They're playing some of their best basketball right now. Make no mistake, like, Kearney's a clear favorite here, and not to give bulletin board material or anything like that, but that's looking at Kearney versus Corning. Kearney is a clear favorite, but Corning, that's kind of familiar territory for Corning over the last couple of weeks too. Like Elmira was, I think a lot of people counted them out against Elmira. When I saw they won that game, it wasn't a shock, but I could also tell you the exact spot on the Rush Henrietta court that I was standing when I looked at my phone and saw, 46-44 or whatever it was. And I was like, oh shoot, okay, but Corning got them. But they have, as far as the actual matchup goes, they almost look, the way that they play, and from a stature standpoint, they almost kind of look like Kearney, minus Cadence Hadley and Allie. Like, they put a bunch of kids out on the court that are like 5'4" to 5'8". Good guards, athletic guards, high IQ. Their point guard, Alyssa Dobson, is one that I really like, who kind of keeps the machine oiled, can score when needed. The other kid that had a really nice game for Corning against Warwick was Jenna DiNardo. She's a high-level athlete. She's a junior. Basketball is not her number one sport. I think she's committed to Virginia for lacrosse. But just that high-level athlete. They play together. Similar sort of. They play together. They're scrappy. They're relatively consistent. And again, they're playing with house money at this stage.
Got you. And talking about Kearney a little bit more specifically here, the entire year, AJ would tell me, oh, well, they're playing a bunch of out-of-town teams. So we don't know how good they actually are. We'll see what they do come sectional time and playoff time to see how they stack up with the rest of the section. And news to me, they lost a lot off of last year's team as well. So for them to get back to this point is very impressive. And the fact that they've kind of like handled business down the stretch here. You've seen them a few times this year. What makes them tick and what makes them so impressive this year with this new iteration of the Kings?
I think a lot of people just didn't realize how good these young kids were. That's obviously they graduated. Sanaya Wilson, Mariana Friedman, Taylor Norris, 3 Division I players, and Camille Ray. But this next crop coming up they're ready for the moment. And Kaya Good's really good at basketball. Like that.
The joke has been made many, many times on air. That's for sure.
Huh? Yeah. Like
we've made the pun very many times.
Like, she's just really good at that's, and it is what it is. Like, Kaya's a very good basketball player, and maybe there are people out there that look at the fact that she's like 5'2" on a good day and just kind of look past her a little bit. The kid can hoop. And not only can she play, she can lead a high-level team. She's a winner. She can lead a high-level team that has young players that are very talented, but they're also learning how to win. She can lead that sort of group. Where, yeah, they played a lot of out-of-town teams. I don't know how much of that was them choosing to play out of town. I don't know how many. There might be teams that might not want to play them locally. It is what it is, but that young crew coming up is very talented. They have a high level player that's also a winner and a great leader in Kaya, and guard skill will take you a long way. when you have 4 kids, along with Kyle, you've got Amaya Jackson, you got Clarissa Good, you got Anaya Rowe. Anaya Rowe, the way that they're playing her, she's such a matchup nightmare. Watching, and not just this one, but recency bias, bringing up the Lancaster game where Lancaster goes zone and they allow her to work in the first half out of the high post. She's a zone buster if she's a guard. She's a zone buster if she's working out of the high post because she finishes well at the rim. She's crafty around the rim. She makes decisions. She makes good decisions. She makes quick decisions. When you have that amount of kids that have skill with the basketball in their hands, can get to spots on the court, and can dictate the tempo and pace of the game, you're a tough team to beat.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. It'll be interesting to see if Kearney can pull off the upset. But on the other side of the AA bracket, we have Baldwin out of the Long Island area, and then Cicero-North, Syracuse, CNS. CNS, this is their first time being to this stage since they had Brianna Stewart, and I think we all know her greatness and what she's done for the sport. But just talk about CNS and what have they done to turn the tide here, so to speak, and how they've gotten to this point.
It hasn't necessarily always been pretty for CNS, but they know how to win. They know they execute. They know how to win games late. They have a coach that's been there, which that makes a difference. Their current coach, Rob Seichin, was the coach of Jamesville DeWitt fame when they had their string in recent years of Class A state Final Fours and state finals, state championships. They had a couple really good rumbles with Mendon over the years. But CNS presents an interesting it's an interesting matchup because you don't often see you see a lot of backcourt players, see a lot of good guards, and then you'll see some at the high school level, and you'll see some maybe dominant bigs. There aren't too many wing scorers, like high level wing scorers. CNS has 2 high level wing scorers and wing players in Alita Carey Santangelo and Alexa Kulikowski. And they do 2 entirely different things. So it's not like guarding 2 of the same thing. Alita's about 5'9", really long, freak athlete, dynamic athlete. Put the ball on the floor, gets into the mid-range, and just rises up. She'll rise up over the top of somebody 6'2". Just a matchup nightmare for a lot of teams just because she does a good job of backing down and getting to her spots. And the only team that I have watched give her problems was Mendon. In a double over, CNS came out to Mendon on a Saturday. It was a double overtime game. And they gave her some issues because like a Naya or somebody would kind of get under her chest and take a charge when she's trying to back somebody down from the mid post, and she got called for push off a couple times and was on the bench. But she's very difficult for teams to deal with just because of her ability to get to spots and rise over the top. Then on the other wing is Alexa Kulikowski, who's 5'11", 6 foot, and a sniper. Just knockdown shooter, quick release, has done a better job, has also moves off the ball now. In years past, it was more she was just a shooter, and now she moves off the ball, catches and finishes off cuts, gets out in transition, really good job with dexterity as far as being able to catch on the move and quickly finish. It's tough for teams to deal with because you don't see teams with that sort of makeup, with 2 distinct wing scorers that have their own skill sets, and a team in CNS that they do a very nice job of executing in the half court and being able to get those kids some touches in advantageous spots, whether it's open look for Alexa or backdoor cut for Alexa or an ISO for Alita or whatever it may be. But they've done a nice job being able to dictate the tempo of the game, dictate the style of the game. They're not a team that's going to score in the 60s and 70s on any sort of consistent basis. They're more like a low to mid 50s team. And they do a nice job of being able to dictate the tempo and make it so 55 to win the game.
Got you. This time of year, Tempo definitely will win a lot of state titles. So going over to the Saturday slate, another AAU start for those at home, another 9 a.m. start. Those going to Class C, East Rochester taking on Millbrook. It's going to be an interesting matchup. East ER's first trip in school history to the Final Four in Millbrook. They've been here before. This is their fourth. They've won the sectional title 4 years in a row. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they haven't been able to play at this stage in a minute. So it'll be interesting to see. This is the matchup of what if, and both teams are kind of off of last year's, I guess, COVID shortened season. Both teams were itching to get back to this point, but now it's here. So just talk about the fact that both teams kind of have like a little bit of added motivation to the fact that last year they really, really wanted to get here, but it was outside of their hands, and now the opportunity in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, it was Millbrook was going to get there, and I would say East Rochester was at least a favorite as far as being able to get to Hudson Valley. That Millbrook, it would have taken Jesus for them to not be able to make it to that point. And they're in a different, like, the difference between last year and this year is, and with all due respect to those two teams, there would have been a clear favorite, and it wouldn't have been either of them in the season. You know, Cambridge was still in their run with their dynamic senior class, 2 Division I basketball players and a third kid who would have been a scholarship player if she decided to go down that road, but she's rowing at Stanford. So, you know, at a Class C, like the line that I had used, because they won the 2019 state title starting 4 sophomores and a freshman. And nobody in C gave them a real game. And, you know, the line that I had used with Cambridge was the only C that could stop them was COVID. And, you know, that was the last year there would have been a clear favorite. It would have been at the bare, you know, obviously, if you want to lose your money, go bet on high school girls basketball. You never know what's going to happen. But
we're good at losing our money at other things to begin with.
But yeah, it would have been good for them, obviously, to have the experience and then, you know, just lace them up and go play. You never know what's going to happen. But the difference between last year and this year was last year would have had that clear favorite. And this year, I don't think has, you know, it's I think this is the most intriguing team, or I think this is the most intriguing class, pardon me, just because it's 4 teams that I could see all of them beating each other depending on how a game plays out. They all bring their different kind of flavor. But yeah, as far as the added motivation of being here, you know, that's East Rochester has that, you know, actually both of them. They have a crew of kids that have been around for 2, 3, in some cases 4 years, where they've, you know, that's something over a period that they would have counted on being to this point. So it's been a long time coming for both.
When researching this matchup, it's going to be interesting to see how East Rochester handles the inside game of Natalie Fox and Emily Grassler, they put up some big numbers in the paint. Although they get in transition a lot, they haven't really played any, I guess, formidable presences inside. So talk about, I guess, the contrasting styles. likes to get up and down. Sam Lewis, obviously great in transition, but clearly Millbrook has some 2 studs underneath that's going to make that pretty difficult.
Yeah, and that's how each of the 4 teams kind of bring their own flavor. Millbrook brings that star presence in Natalie Fox, and she's the highest level prospect at this point that's left in the season. She's one of the highest level prospects there this weekend. 6'3" sophomore. She already got about 8 to 10 Division I offers. And she's a difficult matchup. Score with her back to the basket, can face up, stretch the perimeter, runs the floor pretty well, especially for size and age. And she's added some strength. You know, I love her to pieces, but, you know, in her younger days, she was a little soft around the rim, and she's added some strength. She's added some, you know, she's physically and mentally matured, where She can bang around the rim. She's willing to take some physicality. She's willing to dish out some physicality too. And yeah, that makes the fact that Natalie is that sort of presence. Emily Grassler would be the best forward on a lot of teams here. A lot of teams that are still playing. But the fact that Natalie's there makes her even more dangerous because she doesn't get as much of the attention because of Natalie. But Emily, 6-footer, athletic, similar sort of thing, score with her back to the basket. She's a little more comfortable facing up and using her athleticism. Gets after it on the glass, gets off the floor well. They're both double threats pretty much every time out. That is something that East Rochester, East Rochester, the thing that they bring in comparison to the other 4 teams is the fact they're just kind of good at everything. They're Duanesburg has its specialty. Newark Valley kind of has its specialty, or the thing that pops off the map. Millbrook has the star power front court presence. And Millbrook has added balance. Now, I don't want to just say Natalie and Emily, and that's it. They've added some balance, especially as they've moved on to Class C play, because throughout the league that they play in, they're playing a lot of B's and A's, and Coach Peak will do what he can to kind of schedule up and play some stiffer non-league competition. So as they've moved on to Class C play, that production has become a little bit more balanced with some of their guards. But East Rochester, they're just kind of the jack of all trades. They're not the best shooting team of the 4, but they got some kids that can shoot. They're not the biggest team of the 4, but they got some size. That sort of with the positional balance and the ability to kind of nickel and dime you and get production from different players in different ways. It'll be a matchup that East Rochester's never seen before. But to me, the game's kind of a toss-up. I can see that. I pretty much wouldn't be surprised no matter how that game goes.
Definitely. And then Class B, taking a look at the afternoon slate, 12:30 start. We've got Waterloo, who we've just been talking about all season long. Obviously, they've played up here in Section 5. They've beaten the Canandaigua. They've beaten Mercy, 25-0. Taking on Putnam Valley, who have just pulled off a big upset. They just beat Locust Valley, who was previously undefeated, previously 3rd ranked. They beat them 49-38 in the regionals. What can they do to kind of pull off another big upset here?
Yeah, out of the 20 teams that are left, I might be the least surprised that Waterloo's here. Waterloo and Mendon might be about the 2 least surprising teams that they've made it to this point. And going back to the thing that I mentioned with Kearney, where it was the 2 types of teams that I'll never look past this time of year, regardless of what conventional wisdom might say. Putnam Valley's 2 for 2 there. They're playing, to an extent, they're playing with house money. First time making it to this point. It's possible that they would have made it here a couple years ago, but obviously COVID happened and they haven't. They beat Locust Valley. They beat Irvington in the Section 1 finals, which I think I would say the average person probably thought Irvington was going to win that game. So to an extent, they're playing with some house money here. And they also have that transcendent star in Eva Deschette. Eva's about as talented as anybody that's left in any class. 5'11", supremely skilled guard. She's a junior that's already committed to URI, University of Rhode Island, which Section 5 tie-in. The time when I went to watch Putnam Valley in late January, who was sitting front row, but URI assistant Megan Schonecker, Greece Arcadia grad, 2,000 plus point scorer in Monroe County. Yeah. But yeah, that's Eva's a star just from an individual standpoint, where she's got the ability to take over a game. And I think her biggest progression individually is that she's developed leadership qualities, and she's developed the ability to create for others and make her teammates better, which has amplified what a couple of the other player, their next two in line are both guards, so they've got that sort of guard depth that can take you a long way. And Amanda Orlando and Nye Torres, and A, the attention that Eva brings, and B, also her ability to create advantageous opportunities for others. That's kind of enhanced what Orlando and Torres have brought to them, especially I'd say over the last couple of months. On paper, again, to call Waterloo a favorite would certainly not be a stretch. What they bring to the table, and they bring their own individual kind of a nightmare individual matchup in Giovanna White Principio. And I think Newport on Saturday they fell victim to overcompensating for G, where and I'm curious to see, this is probably what I'm the most curious about with this game, is Putnam Valley is a smaller team too. That's with Newport. Sophie Hour is their biggest player, who, sorry, Soph, love you. She's like 5'9" with the hair. And that's Eva's, Putnam Valley's biggest player at about 5'11", and she's more of a guard. So I'm curious as to whether they'll, those sorts of game, I think no matter what you do, G's going to kind of get hers, especially in the half court. She's got pretty good hands. She catches and finishes, soft touch around the rim. Even, now and then she steps out and knocks down a three. But these sorts of games, like Newport bum rushed her, threw 2 or 3 bodies at her. She still scored 16. And it's not like you're going to, smaller teams, it's not like you're going to take her out of the picture. It just allowed, that game, it allowed Addison Bree to get off and knock down threes. It allows kids like Morgan Caraballo and Macy Carr to have more room to operate. The thing I'm most curious about is how Putnam Valley is going to defend Waterloo. They're a smaller team. Are they going to do the same thing, or are they basically going to say, all right, G, you're probably going to have 25 minutes. We're going to try and hold everybody else at 20 to 25, and if we don't score in the 50s, we don't deserve to win the game. So that's, at least for me, that's what I'm the most curious about. But yeah, and to call Waterloo favorite certainly wouldn't be a stretch by any standards, but Putnam Valley's got that star, and they're playing free.
Yeah, especially, I've seen, Waterloo a couple times here. You see them against some of these, inexperienced teams, just Waterloo's press. It just gets at you. I saw them in the Class B crossover game. They played a pretty talented Mid-Lake squad. They held them to 0 points in the fourth, or 0 field goals in the fourth quarter. It was just a defensive presence. How can, an Eva, handle that pressure that they throw at her, maybe use her size against some of the smaller guards that Waterloo has run around her. And like you said, maybe try and take over this game as a transcendent type player.
So they've got kids that can handle the ball, and I hope that they don't overdrive. That's because the way, Waterloo with the zone press, they kind of want people to over dribble. They want people to try to take them one-on-one. I hope, just for Putnam Valley's sake, I hope that they don't do that. But if they're able to get into some one-on-one situation, Eva's a very dynamic player with the ball in her hands. Very skilled, very good ball handler. She could see over the top, if zone press break, getting into the middle of the floor, getting it over top. She definitely could see over top of the smaller Waterloo guards. They, they might put her in the middle. Who knows? Because they do have a couple other guards that have some skill, in Orlando and Torres, that can make some decisions. Maybe they even throw Eva in the middle of a press break and try to get it to her there where she can attack instead of, basically dictating from the head of the press break. It's that Waterloo press is a bear for a lot of teams. They're active, they're athletic, and they're tough. They're tough, they're scrappy, they bother teams, they frustrate guards, and they get in their heads a little bit. So can Putnam Valley handle Putnam Valley could handle the press as long as they just if they stay disciplined against it, they have the guard skill to be able to do it. But that you've seen that Waterloo press take down a few good teams in its recent day. So
yeah, definitely. And then taking a look at the other matchup, General Brown out of Syracuse versus is it Schalmont or is it Schalmont?
Schalmont.
Gotcha. Schalmont out of Albany, right in your neck of the woods. We've actually, Schalmont's got a little Section 5 competition earlier this year. They beat Fairport, who, obviously a really quality, took Bishop Kearney out of the wire, beat him 60-39. I saw you were at that game. What the heck kind of happened there?
They frustrated Fairport. That's just, there's no, I think I think the Fairport people would love that game, back. They just, that was probably, and a lot of it was Schalmont's doing, but they frustrated the heck out. Just ball hawk defensively, get up into their chests, just beat them, let them know about it. That whole kind of got in their heads a little bit. Yeah, I think Fairport would like that game back, but that's the sort of thing when Schalmont's playing well, that's what they can do. They have, and what's interesting in this matchup is General Brown has played against that transcendent star in the backcourt numerous times this year up in the Watertown area in Jackie Pittock. And Jackie Pittock is as good as they get in upstate New York from a point guard standpoint. Playing at Marist next year, could definitely see her playing right away. So they've played against that. They've played against that star in the front court in Indian River's Adrian Lamora, who's going to Canisius next year. They haven't played against a team that's got both. Schalmont's got both. The point guard and Peyton Graber, high-level player, senior. She's been on varsity since 7th grade. She's like, I remember when she was in 7th grade, little like 4'11" pipsqueak that used to like put my elbow up on her head, be like, hey, what's up, Peyton? Now she's about 5'8", 5'9". Sprouted up a decent amount in her high school days. She's been kind of the cornerstone of that program for the last few years. I think she could get to 2,000 career points in this General Brown game. I think she's not far. I think she's maybe within a game's distance of that. Potent scorer. She's been a potent scorer for a while. She's another kid that I think her next step that she's taken in the last 12 to 18 months is transitioning from being a high-level player to a winner, to a leader of teammates, making other players better, matching that energy on the defensive end, making that same sort of impact. She's a high-level guard, and then they've got a high-level front court presence in Carissa Antone. So sophomore, already Division I offered kid, 5'11", plays like she's about 6'3". She's got good length, freak athlete, like up towards the rim sort of athlete. Those two work well together, pick and roll situations, 2-player game. Carissa's offensive skill set is expanding. She can step out and knock down a three. She can take people off the dribble. And their third kid, which I've known these kids forever, right? They're Schalmont's in my backyard. I've known these kids forever. I didn't think about this until Sunday. The kid that you would call the third option of their big three is a 1,000-point scorer, which that's that Haley Burchard, the senior that's also been up since 7th grade. But it's just kind of crazy to think about. That's a kid that averages she's extremely important to the team. She's a glue kid. She fills a stat sheet. You take her off that team, they're nowhere near as good. But offensively, you would consider her the third of the big three. Like, she's a 1,000-point scorer. Okay. But yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup for General Brown because they haven't seen both. And Schalmont is as even with a team, let's say Schalmont gets through General Brown and Waterloo gets through Putnam Valley. Waterloo's had some tough non-league opponents. Schalmont's the most talented we've seen. So that would be interesting. I'd be curious as to how that game would pan out.
Definitely that General Brown Schalmont, the 2 versus 3 in the state rankings. So if Waterloo makes it there, they're certainly going to get one heck of a tough fight there as well. And then now here in section 5, we do not have a Class D rep, our one section without, but we do want to give some love to the small schools. So you've got Franklin versus Sherman, and then Copenhagen versus Hartford in those 2 matchups. If there's one thing you're kind of looking forward to watching, one really thing you're interested in seeing in this Class D, kind of what are you most looking forward to? Those games are Friday nights. So what's kind of standing out in the Class D when you look at it?
Oh, trying to narrow it down a little. What's interesting to me is, just as an aside, I wish, I would have loved to see this, and this is nothing against Sherman at all. Just it's the reality of the situation. I would have loved to see Copenhagen, Hartford, Franklin, and a Batavian Notre Dame team with Amelia McCully. That would have made some high level, probably about as high levels as 4 teams of Class D basketball as there has been since I've been doing this. But the fact that Notre Dame made it to that point without Amelia all year, she's out with a knee injury, that's that was kind of a testament to them, because I didn't see, I was there when Amelia got hurt playing AAU in July. When she went down, I was like, oh, oh, her dad is the assistant coach of the team. I'm like, oh God, no. I feel terrible for the kid, and my God, they're going to be in trouble. I was at the D1 sectional final game last year where she dropped 30 to beat South Center, and but they still shoot. They made it to that point. They had a lead at half, and Sherman kind of did what they do, just keeping teams. They've done a really nice job defensively with the depth of athletes, and they held Notre Dame to 5 in the second half. That's what Sherman's calling card has been. I'm curious. I think I'm probably more curious on the other side of the bracket with Copenhagen and Hartford, because if you asked me before the season who I thought would take the state title in Class D, I probably would have said Copenhagen. And they haven't done anything to make me say different, but this matchup's really tricky for them. Their front court has been dominant for the last 4 years. Reagan Dalrymple and Charlie Carroll, both of them legit 6-footers. They bring different things. Reagan's a little bit more of a stretch kid. Charlie's a little bit more of a true 5 back to basket. They've been able, especially in the Class D ranks, nobody's had anything for them. They've been able to either one, the other, or both has been able to dominate. And Hartford is the first time all year that they're going to bump into bigs that can mess with. And, Hartford's got a lefty 6-footer strong kid, Carly Nims, 1,000-point scorer. She's probably the most potent scorer of the group between the 2 teams. And they've got another forward, a little bit shorter, probably in like 5'10" range, Alana Dunda, that they're strong, they're tough, they're physical. This will be the stiffest challenge from a Copenhagen front court standpoint of, they're going to be physical. They're going to root them out of the paint. They're not afraid of the, essentially the hand-to-hand combat in basketball. So I'm curious as to how that's going to shake out. So if I had to go with one thing, it's the front court battle of Copenhagen Hartford, how that's going to shake out. And I think that, that'll go a long way. And does Copenhagen, I think Copenhagen's got very, Copenhagen probably had higher expectations. I think they both expected to be here, but I think Copenhagen maybe had some higher expectations coming in. Do they live? Do they get there, or does Hartford crash the party?
So that'll be the Friday night slate wrapping up after the A and the double A should be one heck of a day of basketball. I just saw you posted your Class D state previews. Why don't you plug a little what you got on the website coming up this week, gearing up to this big, the biggest week of girls basketball here in New York.
Yeah, I before this year I switched over to, as far as the website goes, I had just kind of done blog stuff, which was just writing about stuff I was at when I had the time to. And before this season started, I kind of switched over to a more subscriber-based thing, as far as the writing goes, because I've dedicated some more time to the writing piece, to making sure I save time to write about most of pretty much any game that I was at, or reviews of the day, or previews of the day to come. And this week the main thing has been state Final Four previews of everything. So I put the D's up yesterday afternoon, I put the C's up last night. I haven't posted the B's yet, but the B's are done. They're already on the website. I just haven't linked it to Twitter or Instagram or anything yet. But that's all on the website is www.empirestateTakeover.com. Social media, pretty much everything is Empire State Takeover except Twitter is NYS Takeover, but that's character limits at its finest. But yeah, that's what's up over these next 2 or 3 days. Just this is a wrap for high school season at the end of this week. No federations. Everybody's on to AAU and spring sports after this Sunday. So this is kind of the last hurrah. So these few days are just kind of reflecting on what's left. And I'm meaning to write something about Far West. I haven't got to it yet. I was actually going to take a break so I got the B's done. I was actually going to do my Far West thing before I got into the A's. So I might do that today, where I finally just put some, nothing crazy, but just some notes and thoughts about what I saw at Far West and all that. But yeah, that's been, each year I try to do something a little different. This is the 8th year on the girls' side. Each year I try to do something a little different, whether it's add an event, like that's what, add an event that I run, or change this or change that. This has been one of, my big change of this year was switch over to subscriber site, try to focus a little bit more energy in the writing. And it's been fun. It's been an adjustment, but it's been fun.
Got you. No, all of us back in Section 5, we appreciate all the coverage that you do. I know this week when I was over at Rush Henrietta, seeing all of the work that you were doing helped me out in terms of producing content and stuff like that. So we really do appreciate all the work that you do. It does not go unnoticed. But I had a lot of fun doing this. I learned a lot, getting geared up for this weekend. It's going to be a fun one. AJ brought bad luck to the boys in Buffalo, so we didn't have any boys headed up to states. But I'm happy to see that we got some girls teams, and they got to have some formidable opponents and some stiff tests coming up. So once again, I appreciate you. I know AJ does as well, for you coming on and taking time out of your day. It was fun. It was really, really fun doing this. Thank you, my man.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Glad to be on. Glad to be a part of this. Section 5 basketball is in a good spot right now, so it's good to see him having success, and I'm glad I'll be able to see him in my backyard.
Definitely. And for all those listening, especially in Section 5, Carl's the one going out to the state tournament. So I'm not bringing my bad luck over there. We had a lot of tough heartbreaks in the boys' side. So it'll be Carl going. So thanks, Jeff, for coming on. We really appreciate it. Be sure to head over to Empire State Takeover. Get all of this great information. Does a real service to the girls basketball here in New York State. Thanks once again, Jeff, for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. Once again, we want to thank Jeff for coming on the podcast, for providing a lot of great insight for anybody coming out to the Albany area to Troy for the girls' Final Four. I know I talked to Karen Iglesias, our friend over at Primetime Ballers there. She stopped me at Buff State. She's talking about how she listened to Mary Margaret Johnson's pod coming all the way back down to Buffalo, get it ready. I'm sure many people will be listening to this on their way to the state Final Four. I know, just really bringing the analysis there. Oh
yeah, I mean, it was a ton of information. I mean, y'all want to know. I mean, obviously, he brought in like from way back. I mean, he talking like middle school, 7th and 8th grade for a lot of these girls in the AAU circuit. So he clearly knows his information. I learned a ton. I'm gonna definitely go there while I'm shooting and have like a much better understanding of what's going on out there. I mean, I gotta respect his hustle in his craft, and I learned a ton for that. So for all those making the trip to upstate New York, this will be a great episode for y'all to listen to and get a great understanding of all things girl basketball.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate you guys all for listening. That'll do it for us here on the High School Huddle podcast. Next week, we'll be recapping everything we saw girls basketball, kind of putting a bow on the winter sports season. There are no federations this year, so putting a bow on the winter sports season. Then we gear up for spring sports. Times to get to some lax. We'll see. We'll see if there's any sort of hiatus in the show. There might be a week off just because we haven't gotten to any of the spring sports left. But it's coming around the corner. Got about 55 outside today. Spring is sprung. Spring sports are back, baby.
Yes, sir. So I can't wait, and just learned about hockey. Y'all introduced me to this great lacrosse that y'all have up here in Section 5 in upstate New York. I can't wait. Y'all been talking about it ever since I got the job. Time to show out and show me what y'all working with up here. I can't wait.
It's a lot more goals. It's a lot warmer, as long as the weather ain't bad, but more rain. So that's the thing. You're going to shoot at least, it'll be like soccer. You're going to have a couple days like, oh my God. Luckily, they score quickly. Luckily, they score pretty quickly.
Nothing worse.
We won't worry about the rain yet. We're gonna cross our fingers for that. That'll do it for us today on the High School Huddle podcast. Once again, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RochesterFirst.com, and YouTube. We thank you for listening. We thank you for supporting. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. I don't know. Put an RSS feed up on us. I don't know how people get podcasts these days, but thanks for listening. We will see you next week.